Greetings, welcome back to CS195 Web Development. This is week 10, DOM events. Yesterday we learned about just adding an event listener, how you could listen to a click. That's really what we focused on, but you can use Google to find on hover and everything that you're looking for. And now we're going to do the event properties. There's a few of them to focus on. One of the big ones we're going to learn today is mouse, X and Y, so you can actually track where your mouse is. So with that, we're going to go ahead and, again, our objective is to understand, to interact with events and that happen. So again, not only listen to the events, but actually interact with the events. That's kind of the concept, because there's properties in these events that we can use to interact actually with the event. So our success criteria is you'll be able to listen for a click and then get the location of the mouse. Right? You'll be able to get the location of the mouse. And in our demonstration, we're actually going to use it so we can have a picture follow us around, follow the mouse around, using our lovely position stuff we learned in CSS. So it's so important to understand all of this as we go into these final pieces of this. So we'll watch our con video and then we'll try this out.
I've got this web page with a picture of Winston. It's getting cold here, and Winston is getting old, so he wishes he had a beard. I could draw the beard myself, but I think it'd be way cooler if the user could draw the beard on Winston themselves, however they want it to look. A long beard, some stubble, whatever they're into. So how could we do that? One way is to add an event listener for the mousemove event on the image, so that our function would get called whenever the user moved their mouse over the face. Let's set that up using what we just learned. The first step is to find the element, the image. So var face equals document.get element by ID face, since it had that nice ID. The second step is to define the callback function. And we're going to start with a simple one just to make sure that it worked. And we'll make it do more later. So document.get element by ID message dot text content plus equals move. Okay. And the final step is to connect this to make sure that this gets called when this gets the mouse move event. So we'll write face.add event listener mouse move, and then pass it the name of the function on mousemove. Now, pause the talk through and try moving your mouse over the face.
Pause. Hey, it's moving. Again, only when you move does it do that. So it's out of space. So it resets it. So again, only when you're moving does it do that.
Do you see the message? Okay, hopefully you saw that we've got that event working, but it's not what we want our event listener to do. We want it to draw, not to write text. How can we draw in a web page? We could bring in the canvas tag and draw pixels on it like we do with processing.js programs here, but all we're drawing is a beard, which is really a bunch of black dots. So we could just create a div for each dot and position that div with absolute positioning. Here, let me show you with one beard follicle. So I'll make a div with class beard, and then I've got some nice CSS to style that beard, which I'll just stick in here. And let's just fix that up. So you can see our beard is a black background. It's 5 by 5 pixels. It's got this 2 pixel border radius to make it a little bit round, and it's using absolute positioning scheme. Currently, the div shows up under the image. How do we get it to show up on top of the face? We're using absolute positioning, so that means that we should use the top and left properties to say, you know, where it should actually get positioned now that it's absolute. So we'll say top 80 pix, and then left 15 pix. Beautiful. Now that we've got that working in HTML, let's make it work in JavaScript so that the user dynamically creates this div every time they move their mouse. Go back down to our JavaScript callback function, The first thing is to create a div, which we can do with our document.createElement function. It's going to be a div. Second thing to do is to add that class, beard.className equals beard. So we've got this div, it's floating off in space. Final step, append it to the body. All right, so now we've basically done in JavaScript what we had done in HTML, so we can delete this HTML. Now you should pause the talkthrough and try clicking Winston.
So basically, as soon as you move on, it's just placing it there. Which is everything this is what we learned. So far, everything is just review. We found the element, we created the function, we added the listener, we learned a new mouse move, we reviewed our creating. So here's another great example of when you would actually create an element, because then every time it moves is creating a new element. Now, right now, it's just putting it over and over and over again at that same spot. So she's going to teach us how we can actually interact with the event, which was, again, the objective of this lesson.
See what happens. Did you see the beard follicle show up? And did you try clicking multiple times? If you did, you probably noticed that your second click did nothing, or at least it appeared to do nothing. That's because every div has the same top and left properties, so new ones just pile on top of the old ones. We want the div to show up wherever the user's mouse is instead. How do we actually find out where the user's mouse is? As it turns out, the browser records a lot of information every time any user event happens, like where it happens. And the browser gives you that information every time it calls your event listener function. But where? How can we get this amazing information? I'll type one letter, give you a hint. That E here is the event information object, and the browser sends it as the first argument whenever it calls an event listener callback function. We didn't need it before, so I didn't bother writing out the arguments list, but now that we're going to use it, I'm giving it a name to make it easy to reference inside the function. Remember that in JavaScript, a function can be called with any number of arguments, even if the function doesn't use or refer to any of them. So we were always getting this information. We just didn't know it. Now I'm going to log out E. Console.log E. Pause the talkthrough, click Winston.
All right, so we have to inspect so you can actually see it. And you see, look at all this information that we're getting every single time. We get all kinds of information. What we are concerned about are all of these different X and Y positions that we're going to use later, right? That's some of the big things. It has our screen, X and Y, all kinds of fun stuff that we're going to be able to use.
And check your console. You should see the event object logged out, and you can skim through all the properties on it. There are two event properties in particular that we're very interested in, clientX and clientY. They record the X and Y of the event, and that's what we're going to use to position the beard. Let's set the top of the beard equal to e.clientY plus pix for the units, and set the left equal to e.clientX plus pix for units. Now pause.
And now we get to draw a beard on Winston finally. All right, so this is a great example of creating a new element when you need to create a new element. You could, in theory, create your own little drawing tool if you wanted to. Of course, it won't actually go past things, so I can't make a really cool beard on him, as it won't let me go past the picture. That's the code. In theory, you could make it go past the picture, and you can make it so you could draw everywhere. If you were just on hover and listening to the body, then you can go ahead and go over all of it as well. And again, you can make more JavaScript, so you can change the color of it based on little icons on the side, and make yourself a little drawing app.
And try mousing over. Draw Winston a beard. Pretty cool, huh? I bet you can imagine all sorts of fun painting apps that you can make using clientX and client-Y. And as you saw in the console, there were a bunch of other properties on the event object that you could use as well. The most useful, I think, are the keyboard-related ones, so that you can find out what keys the user was pressing when an event happened, and use that to make a keyboard-accessible interface or a really fun game. Oh, and one more thing. You don't have to call this argument E. That's typical, but some developers call it EVT or EVENT. It doesn't matter what you call it, as long as it's referring to the first argument that the browser passes to your
And you
function,
use it at the same
and
time.
as long as you then refer to it that way later as well. If you're having trouble with it, make sure you use console.log to help you debug what's going on.
All right, so that was how you do it. The key is really you get access to it by adding it into your function and then calling it later. So we're going to stick kind of with her concept of this and just use it to, we're going to use it to move a picture around. And that's kind of what we're going to do for this one. So let's go ahead and push this off to the side. So we're going to go ahead and get this because we are going to use it a few times. So var goodpick L equals document.get element. So remember, good pick is that picture over there with the thumbs up. My ID, squiggly bracket, good pick, semicolon, and then we're going to listen on the body. So document.get element, or not, document.body, right? Sorry, document.body, that does the whole entire thing. Add event listener. We're going to listen for mouse over, right? On mouse move. So we're going to listen for mouse move, all one word, all lowercase, comma, and then we're going to create a function. We'll just call it move pick because that's what it's going to do. And this doesn't do anything yet, right? In fact, if while we're doing this, we're probably getting a ton of errors because there's no move pick. So let's go ahead and create that. And this is how I like to do mine. So function move pick. We're going to put an E in there so we can access the elements. And then we already have our goodpickL, so goodpickL.style. And let's see if we have anything already. All right, so yeah, we already have absolute, we already have top. So what we're going to do is we're going to override these pictures. So it already has position absolute. We're just going to override the top and the right. So style.top equals e.clientY plus quotes px, because remember it's in pixels. Enter. I'm going to copy this again so we just make changes to it. Right client X. All right, let's see if we got, there we go. So something's wrong. What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? So it's moving up and down with it, but it's not doing this. So let's change this to left. And there you go. So again, the client X is from the left-hand side, right? The left-hand side. So as we're looking over this, the left-hand side is how far away it is, right, from the left. So that's why it was reversed, because as I moved away from the left, it was coming away from the right. That was giving us that little bit of inverse. And if you mix these up, you can also get some weird results as well, as it does pretty much a lot of the opposite. It moves all kinds of different directions than you. So make sure that you have your X and your Y right, and then you're going from the top and the left. Change that back. There we go. So that's how you get it to follow you around. I think when you move outside of the body or move too quick, it kind of loses it a little bit. Yeah, see, I lost it. So be careful with that. You could select other pieces, but that's it, right? We're pulling in the E, we're pulling in the client X and Y, so we can use this to move around. We saw what you could do with a drawing app. There's a lot you can do with client X and Y for making a shooter game or something. Like, is this in the right position? If you have an image that you know the X and the Y to, you can check where the cursor is. You can check to say, hey, if the cursor is inside the target, then you hit the target, right? So a lot of stuff you can do with X and Y. But that's about it for what we're going over for JavaScript. We'll go some reviews. We'll show a few more examples. And then you're going to use JavaScript to do a bunch of modifications for your project. So go ahead and do your con challenge, your journal entry, and we'll see you for the review.